Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is very important. It is about the No Kings protest and where they are right and where they are wrong. First of all, a little child should be able to tell you that it is stupid to cheat the most righteous person that ever lived out of his right to influence society, out of his right to be a leader for mere whites, Jew, and LGBT supremacists, right? White, Jewish, and LGBT supremacists to feel like they're doing something or anything else they have in mind. That is outrageous. The people who are doing it are pathetic. A child should be able to tell you that is pathetic. And it's profoundly disgraceful for anyone to help them do that. So here in part one, I'm going to explain to you I'll explain to you things in terms of intelligence. And in part two, we're going to talk about the things that they said during the protest, during the things Bernie Sanders said, more specifically, during the No Kings protest, where he claimed that millions of Americans came out all over America. I don't know how many there were. Maybe there were. And where he is going the distance to try to put all kings into one category. In a country that's historically predominantly Judeo-Christian, but that's not so important. What is important is right and wrong is wrong. And he's somebody who says that he's not particularly religious, which puts him out of touch with the vast majority of Americans who are religious in one way or another. Okay, this video is not about bashing Bernie Sanders. I think he probably would be a better president than Donald Trump. I think most people would agree on that. Well, let's get into this. So on the issue of intelligence and the fair assessment, so when we look at the masses of people, we see that they failed to come together to vote for a president that was logical, to present a candidate who would beat Donald Trump, and on and on and on and on. They failed so many places: homelessness, mental health, healthcare. And the mental health system is very oppressive. The people who are crazy don't tend to end up in the psych ward, so to speak, and the people who aren't tend to end up there. I mean, it is more of a mess than people think that it is. And there's all kinds of mentally unstable people everywhere, and they don't trust mental health for a good reason. It is a mess. There's big pharma, there's the banking system, there's racism, there's the education system, which is way out of touch. It has always been a broken education system. They don't even bother to figure out how people learn. It is a very Eurocentric. There's so many problems. So people as groups in America have always, without fail, proven that they are incapable of running a logical society. Okay? Don't beat around the bush. The politicians were always corrupt. The people voted for them. Period. What more do you need to know, right? There's over 20,000 denominations of Christianity in this country. Okay, and not a single one of them sticks out as doing something profoundly righteous and just and logical. Not a single one. Need I go on? If you talk about all the gangs and all the secret societies and all the Satanists, talk about all the corrupt cops, all the military rapes, need I go on? Can you imagine the madman who thinks that the rule of the masses of idiots is greater than the most righteous person that ever lived having the final call? Again, having what? The final call. For example, if the masses of these idiots were coerced by rich people who convinced them to vote for a rape system where children are being raped, okay, and they have the final call and they vote for that, and a righteous person said, no, don't do that. Should you start acting like bitches and saying we don't have kings, or should you let righteousness rule? It's that simple. Now let's talk about intelligence. I'm far more intelligent than everyone else. Let's figure out why here. Point number one. Life wisdom is the highest wisdom there is. We even have a Martin Luther King Day. Not a best American scientist day. Not that I know of, right? Is there a Tesla Day? Maybe unofficially, right? Is there an Einstein Day? No. Is there the smartest American scientist day? No. Because everyone inherently knows that moral wisdom is greater than being a mere scientist. So the highest form of intelligence is life wisdom, moral wisdom. It is making the sound moral decision. And that's the type of person who should lead everyone, Not the masses of lemmings who never do the right thing, who call each other sheeple and stuff like this, who don't agree on a great many things for so many dumb reasons, who play the game instead of manning up and doing the right thing. Vir and virtue means man. Point number 2. And of course, the word man is also in the word woman, and woman's supposed to be virtuous too. Point number 2. In order for one to have above common intelligence, one must have the dignity to not serve their oppressor. The masses of people serve the oppressor in various ways. I'm not just talking about going to work. So you go to work, so what? I'm talking about they join their controlled opposition groups. They fall in line with the status quo, with the governing class, with the elite. They dance to the devil's tune. In their own book, in the Bible, it says, narrow is the way to life, broad is the way to destruction. But you think the masses of demon-worshipping idiots should have the final say where it matters most? That's stupid. Point number 3. Evil people refuse to be corrected by wise people so they can be made good and wise because they are stupid. You know why people are not accepting correction and rallying to me? Because they're stupid. You want stupid, evil people to rule over you instead of the most righteous person, the most intelligent person that ever lived. That's stupid. Point number 4. 48% of Americans have college degrees in 2025. Or, the last I checked, when I checked in this year, it said that 48% of Americans have college degrees. But well over 99% of American adults are stupid and evil. So we know for sure that those college degrees don't mean anything. George Bush had a college degree. Donald Trump probably has a college degree. All kinds of idiots have college degrees. And all kinds of idiots go to Stanford and Harvard and Yale and MIT and Georgetown, you name it. UCLA. Point number 5. When rich people and very educated people argue that they should purge the poor, that they have been sabotaging for generations, they are proving they are extremely stupid. When they argue with people with PhDs, like they did during the eugenics movement in this country, when there was an open eugenics movement, now it's more subtle. When they argued that they should be able to purge the poor that they've been sabotaging for generations, they are proving that they are extremely stupid. Because again, going back to point number 1, life wisdom, moral wisdom, is the highest form of intelligence and the highest wisdom. That's why there's a Martin Luther King Day and not a Best American Scientist Day or the Most Evil American Day, because people inherently know that good is greater than evil and that righteousness is greater than wealth and being a good scientist put together, and infinitely so. So now in part 2, I'll start talking about the things they said, like they reject the divine right of kings, superimposing the idea of arrogant European kings who are like the worst kings in human history on the idea of somebody who's established the throne in righteousness, Proverbs 16:12. In a country where there's 380,000 churches and a little child should be able to beat them on a debate on that issue. Because when people break down into their groups, they champion their perspective, right? They're socialists, they're social democrats, they're communists, they're conservative Democrats, meaning they have conservative values and they happen to like the Democratic agenda a bit more than the Republican agenda. And they're libertarians and they're Republicans, and they've chosen these things over rallying for moral precision. And that is a stupid mistake which shows their inability to come together as groups that we see all throughout American history, to come together as groups and as a massive group to do what's right. That's never happened in American history. Not once did Americans come together as a massive group of people to do what is precisely right. If they ever did something that was more right than something else, it was like a coincidence, right? It was something that happened as a product of how they lived their life. It wasn't this masterful decision that was made. It wasn't because they're wise and they're making a sound choice. Okay? And we have had a democracy the whole time in this country. And so many things that shouldn't have happened as a result. So many people have been raped and killed. So many rape kits are unprocessed. So much corruption. Because the rule of the people has definitively been proven to be inferior to the rule of one righteous person. Okay, keep in mind, I'd have a moral committee. I'd have various racial and ethnic committees to make sure everyone had a chance to weigh in. But when it comes to the final decision, my decision would be moral. And everything in my life reflects that. The way I look for true love, and I've been shunned as a result. The way that I do my martial arts, everything comes from a result of me drawing on the spirit of universal pinpointed moral precision. Whether you believe in a God or not, my my spirit comes out in reality as universal pinpoint and moral precision. Maybe you believe it's from God, maybe you don't. But one thing's for sure, that my actions reflect that superior thinking that far transcends the rule of the people. Thank you.